I shouldn't even be telling you this story, but here we are. And I can feel you listening, so let me start at the moment everything changed. That night my house felt hollow. The kind of hollow that presses on your chest until your breath feels wrong. I was sitting in my living room, knitting quietly, pretending everything in my life was normal, even though nothing had been normal for years. I kept the TV on low, just a soft glow, something to keep me from feeling too alone. It had been 3 weeks since my husband's chair stopped smelling like him. When you lose someone after 53 years of marriage, you cling to the smell of their shirts, the sound of their slippers on the floor, the way they breathed while reading the newspaper. Once those little things disappear, you feel like you're disappearing too. Maybe that's why I first thought it was my imagination. Because I heard someone whisper my name. Soft. Close. Almost too close. I froze. Every bone in my hand stiffened. My knitting fell to the floor. And I swear even now I felt the heat of a breath that wasn't mine. And the worst part? My first feeling wasn't fear. It was hope. A cruel, painful kind of hope. 'Cause it sounded just like him. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just whispered. Richard? My voice cracked, tiny and fragile, like a child calling for a lost pet. My whole body held still. Nothing answered. But the whisper, it hadn't come from nowhere. It came from inside my house. Do you ever get that feeling someone's behind you even though no one is there? Tell me honestly, has that ever happened to you? Because I want to know I'm not the only one. Slowly, I turned toward the hallway. The air had grown colder even though the heater was on. My house is small. 1 hallway, 2 bedrooms, a creaky kitchen. And yet, it felt unfamiliar. Like someone had moved the walls without telling me. I stood up. I shouldn't have. At my age, we're supposed to know better. Call someone, turn on all the lights, pretend nothing happened. But loneliness changes the rules. Loneliness makes you reckless. I followed the sound. The hallway stretched in front of me like it wanted to swallow me whole. Every step groaned beneath my slippers. But I didn't stop. I reached the guest bedroom, Richard's old office. The door was slightly ajar. I had closed it earlier. I was sure. I pushed it open and whispered, Richard, is that you? Nothing. Just the smell of old paper and dust. The cold. It was cold. I reached for the lamp. My fingers trembled. But I turned it on anyway. Warm yellow light filled the room. Everything looked normal. His books, certificates, his leather journal on the desk. Nothing out of place. Nothing to whisper. Nothing to fear. Nothing to hope for. Then the closet door clicked. Clicked. Softly. Deliberately. Someone inside. I stumbled back, gripping the desk to steady myself. My heart thrashed. I whispered, Who's there? And then, I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. Human. Tears slipped down my face. I wasn't thinking about ghosts. I wasn't thinking about Richard. I was thinking about the break-ins on the news, the ones targeting older women who lived alone. I backed away. My body shook. I should have run. I should have called 911. But a strange thought slipped in. What if it really was Richard? My hands went numb. I reached for the closet door. If you're in there, please say something. The breathing stopped. Dead silence. Then a tap. Light. Deliberate. A fingertip against the inside of the door. I stumbled backward, pressing the doorknob to leave the room. My voice cracked as I told anyone watching this to listen carefully. That tap was answering me. I ran out as fast as my old legs could carry me. I grabbed my phone, trembling. Before I could dial, the closet door slammed so loudly it echoed through the house. And that's when I realized something was inside my home. Something alive. Something I hadn't invited. Sweetheart, if you're still here, please stay. You need to hear what happened next. And before I continue, let me ask you, what would you do if you heard your name whispered in your own house, and no one was supposed to be there? Would you hide? Call someone? Or would you follow it? Because what I did next changed everything. I don't know how long I sat there on the couch, gripping my phone like it was the only thing keeping me alive. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst through my chest. The living room was quiet, too quiet, but the air felt heavier somehow, as if it was holding its breath with me. I told myself it was nothing. A draft. The house settling. My imagination. But deep down I knew better. I could feel it. Someone was there. And it wasn't invisible, it wasn't imaginary, it was real. My legs trembled as I stood up. My eyes darted to the hallway, the kitchen, the bedroom, everywhere. Everything was in its place and yet nothing felt right. The house I'd lived in for decades suddenly felt unfamiliar, as if it belonged to someone else. Then I heard it again. Soft. Whispered. My name. Not a word, not a sentence. Just my name. Margaret. It curled through the air like smoke. Gentle. Familiar. Terrifying. I froze, my fingers gripping the arm of the couch. I could barely breathe. My mind screamed at me to call the police, to run, to leave immediately. But another part of me, the stubborn, foolish part that had survived a lifetime of storms, wanted to know. Who was it? I stepped toward the hallway, each footfall heavy, hesitant. My legs felt weak, but I couldn't stop. My heart raced like it was trying to escape my chest. And then a sound from the kitchen. A clink. Like someone had set a glass down gently on the counter. I spun toward it, my breath caught in my throat. My kitchen is right next to the hallway. I could see everything from where I stood. And yet no one was there. I swallowed hard, whispering, "Who's there?" The only answer was silence. I don't know why I did it, but I walked closer. Step by step. My trembling hand reached toward the counter, half expecting to touch someone. Nothing. Just the faint smell of coffee lingering in the air, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the shadows stretching across the walls. Then the doorknob to the basement. Oh God, the basement twitched. Just a small movement. But it was enough. Enough to make me gasp. Enough to freeze me in place. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to calm the shaking in my hands. My mind raced. Should I call for help? Should I run out the front door? But my stubborn heart, my foolish stubborn heart, whispered, go see what it is. Find out. I took one small step toward the basement door. Then another. My breath came out in short, shallow bursts. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to stop. And yet, I moved. I put my hand on the doorknob, cold and slick under my fingers. Nothing. I whispered. Please, whoever you are, please don't hurt me. Then a soft creak. The door shifted just slightly, as if someone inside was pushing against it from the other side. I jumped back, my hand flying to my mouth. Tears stung my eyes. I whispered a prayer under my breath, my voice trembling. And then steps. Slow. Heavy. Coming up from the basement. My stomach dropped. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to cooperate. My mind screamed at me to escape, to flee, but the whisper came again. This time not my name. Just a sound, a low, careful footstep, following me through the house. I backed toward the living room, clutching my phone, my fingers hovering over the dial pad. I could call 911. I should call 911. But something, some strange, awful curiosity made me hesitate. I wanted to see who it was. Wanted to know. And then I heard a voice. Soft. Human. Close. Margaret. It wasn't angry. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't mocking. It was familiar. Almost like someone I had loved, someone I had trusted. My hand shook so hard the phone nearly slipped. I whispered back. Who's there? No answer. Just silence. I could feel the presence moving toward me. I could sense it in the air, brushing against my skin, filling every corner of the room. My mind flashed to my grandchildren. What would they say if they could see me now? Would they believe me? Would they think I'd finally lost it? I swallowed hard, taking a trembling breath. I took another step toward the basement. Step by step, careful, silent. My heart thudded so loudly I could barely hear the faint shuffle of footsteps behind me. And then the lights flickered. I froze. My blood ran cold. The lights flickered again. And in that moment I realized whoever or whatever was in my house, they were letting me know they were there. Watching me. Testing me. Waiting. I swallowed hard and whispered again. What do you want from me? No answer. Only silence. I turned toward the hallway and saw movement. A shadow slipping across the wall. Not fast. Slow. Calculated. I gripped my phone tighter. I wanted to scream, but my voice didn't work. And then the whisper again. This time closer. Right beside me. Margaret. I spun, my heart hammering. Nothing. Just the empty hallway, the creaking floorboards, the soft hum of the refrigerator. I sank to the couch, tears slipping down my cheeks. I whispered, why are you doing this to me? Please just go away. Sweetheart, can I ask you something? Just something small, something real. If you were sitting alone in your house and heard your name whispered repeatedly, and no one was supposed to be there, would you follow it? Or run? Because I did the worst, most foolish thing. I followed it. Step by step. Toward the basement. Toward the unknown. Toward whatever was in my house that night. And I will tell you, nothing in my life had prepared me for what I found when I finally reached the basement door. I couldn't believe my own courage, or my own foolishness, when I slowly reached for the basement door handle. My fingers trembled so violently I almost couldn't grip it. The air around me had changed. The warmth of the living room had vanished, replaced by a cold that seeped into my bones. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to flee, to lock the door and never look back. But something inside, call it curiosity, call it stubbornness, call it the foolish courage of age, kept me rooted to the spot. I turned the knob. Slowly. So slowly it felt like I was holding my own heartbeat in my hands. And then I pulled. The door creaked open. Darkness spilled out like ink, thick and heavy. My eyes strained to see anything, but the faint light from the hallway barely reached the first step. I swallowed hard, trying to calm my racing pulse. My hand clutched the railing as I descended one step. Then another. And that's when I heard it. A whisper. Not my name this time. Not even words. Just a sound. A soft, sorrowful, human-like sigh that drifted from somewhere deeper in the basement. My stomach churned. My throat went dry. I wanted to run, but my legs felt rooted in place, frozen by the unknown. I reached the bottom of the stairs. My eyes adjusted slightly, revealing shadows stretching across the old cement floor. Boxes, old furniture, my husband's forgotten tools, but nothing alive. Nothing moving. And then I saw it. A figure. Not quite solid. Not quite invisible. Just there. In the corner, half hidden by a stack of boxes. I could barely make out the shape, but my instincts screamed danger. My pulse pounded so loud I thought it might echo in the empty basement walls. Who's there? I called out, my voice shaking. No answer. I took a step closer. And that's when the smell hit me. Not smoke, not rot, not mildew. But something metallic, coppery, old. Like blood. Dried blood. I froze. My knees nearly buckled. My hands clutched the railing, trembling uncontrollably. I whispered, "Oh God, no, it can't be." And then the figure moved. Slow. Fluid. Silent. But deliberate. Just a slight shift. Enough to make me gasp. I swallowed hard. My voice came out in a whisper, trembling. "I don't know who you are, but you can't be here." The figure tilted its head, almost like it was studying me, watching me, waiting. And then it stepped closer. I stepped back. My heel hit a box. It toppled over, clanging loudly against the concrete floor. My heart leaped into my throat. The shadow stopped. Waited. Listen. My mind raced. Was it human? Was it alive? Or was it something else entirely? I whispered a prayer. Not one I'd said in years. Not one my grandchildren ever heard. Something from the depths of my soul. And then, I did the foolishest thing of all. I asked a question. Why are you here? The answer was not a voice. Not words. Not even a sound I recognized. But the feeling hit me like a punch to the chest. Cold. Heavy. Real. And that's when I realized the figure wasn't trying to hurt me. Not yet. It wanted me to see something. Something it had been waiting for me to find. My heart raced. My brain tried to make sense of it. How could anything in my home be waiting? And then I saw the small box on the floor just beyond the figure. I hadn't noticed it before. Its edges were worn, and it looked ancient. I stepped closer, my hand shaking, and lifted the lid. Inside, my husband's old journal. The one I had thought lost years ago. I opened it. The first page smelled faintly of his aftershave, the one he always wore before breakfast. My hands trembled as I read the first line. "If you find this, Margaret, they are still here. They never left. And they will whisper until you understand." I gasped, clutching the book to my chest. My eyes darted toward the shadow, and it seemed to lean closer. Not threateningly, gently, almost guiding me. I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my face. I had questions, so many questions. I whispered aloud. Who are they? What do you want from me?" The figure shifted again. And I swear if anyone asks, I'll tell them the truth. It wasn't a person. But it wasn't a ghost either. It was something else. Something tied to the memories of this house, to the history of my family, to secrets buried long before I was born. I opened the journal further. His handwriting was shaky, hurried, desperate. Do not ignore the whispers. They are not evil, but they are lost. They need guidance. You are the only one who can help them. My hands shook harder. My vision blurred. And yet, I knew I couldn't leave. I couldn't run. Because suddenly, I understood. The whispers, the shadow, the tapping, the figure. It had all been trying to reach me. To lead me here. To show me something I needed to see. My tears fell freely. I whispered, Richard, is this what you were warning me about? No answer came. Only the gentle presence of the figure, waiting, patient. And then as I turned a page, I realized something that made my stomach drop. The journal wasn't just his. It contained names, dates, locations, secrets, people who had been lost, people who had disappeared. And the shadow, it wanted me to continue his work. I pressed my hand to the floor, feeling the cold concrete, feeling the reality of what was in front of me. My body shook with fear, exhaustion, and a strange kind of purpose. And then a whisper. Soft. Close. Gentle. Margaret, help us. My tears flowed freely. I could barely speak. I whispered. I will try. I don't know how, but I will. The shadow receded slightly, as if acknowledging my promise. And in that moment I knew. Everything was about to change. Sweetheart, can I ask you something? Just for a second, think about this. If someone or something came to you needing help, and you were the only one who could guide them, would you step forward, even if your whole life told you to run? Because that night I chose to step forward. And whatever waited in that basement, whatever had been whispering my name was counting on me. I wish I could say the night got easier after I discovered the journal. I wish I could tell you that once I understood, the whispers stopped, the shadow disappeared, and I slept peacefully. But no, sweetheart. Nothing about that night was simple. That house had secrets, and those secrets were patient. Waiting. Watching. I stayed in the basement for what felt like hours, clutching the journal to my chest, my eyes darting to the figure in the corner. It hadn't moved. Not a step. Not a flicker. It just waited, silent but alive, like it had been doing for decades. I swallowed hard and whispered, I don't even know where to start. How do I help you? The figure shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly, toward the corner of the basement where a small trapdoor led further down. My heart sank. Another level? Another secret? At my age, I shouldn't be exploring hidden passages in an old house. But something inside me pushed forward. Something stronger than fear. Something that said, you've survived worse. You can do this. I took a tentative step toward the trapdoor. My hand shook as I reached for the handle. The metal was cold, so cold it burned my fingers. I whispered, Is this what you want me to see? A whisper responded. Not in words but in feeling. The air pressed against my skin, heavy and expectant. My breath hitched. I had no choice but to open it. The trapdoor groaned, slow and mournful, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward. The faint light from the basement barely reached the first few steps. I felt my legs tremble, but I climbed. Step by step, one after another, my hands gripping the railing for dear life. The air grew colder the deeper I went. My breath came out in puffs, fogging the dark. And then I heard it. Not a whisper. Not a tap. But laughter. Soft. Human. Joyful, almost painfully so. I froze. Laughter? Here. In the darkness of my basement? My mind screamed, this isn't possible. You're imagining it. But it wasn't imagination. I could hear it clearly. Low, delicate, a child's laughter. A girl. Young. Innocent. Lost. My throat tightened. I whispered, Who are you? No answer. Only the laughter again, fading as I went deeper, leading me down the narrow staircase until I reached a small room at the bottom. It was old, forgotten. Cobwebs draped the corners. Dust layered the floor. And in the center a small box. I moved closer, my heart hammering. I wanted to run. I wanted to turn around and leave the house forever. But something stronger pulled me forward. The laughter had stopped, replaced by a silence so heavy it pressed on my chest. I opened the box. Inside, photographs. Old ones. Children. Families. People who had vanished over the decades. And letters. Handwritten, desperate. Names, dates, and addresses. I realized this house had been a repository of lost souls. People who had been forgotten. People who had been trapped. Whispering, waiting. Needing someone to notice them. And then I understood. The shadow, the whispers, the taps, they weren't threats. They were cries for help. I sank to my knees, clutching the photographs and letters. My hands shook. My mind reeled. My heart felt heavy with sorrow and responsibility. I whispered aloud, "I don't know how to help you, but I will try. I have to." The air shifted. The temperature softened slightly. The shadow moved closer, gentler this time, almost guiding me toward the items in the box. My hands shook as I touched each photograph. Each letter felt like it carried a lifetime of pain and fear. Then a whisper. Not in my ear. Not from the shadow. But inside my head. "Thank you." I gasped. Tears filled my eyes. I had never felt anything like this in my life. I knew then that I wasn't alone. I had company. Not a companion of flesh, not quite human, but a presence that needed me. And I, for reasons I couldn't explain, needed it too. I thought of Richard. My husband, gone these many years, had always warned me of things beyond our understanding. And now I realize he hadn't been gone. He had left me clues. He had prepared me for this moment. My hands gripped the journal tighter. I whispered, "I won't fail you. Promise. I'll do what you need." The shadow receded, melting into the darkness. And for the first time that night I felt calm. Not safe. Not completely. But purpose. A purpose I hadn't felt since my husband had passed. Sweetheart, I have to ask you, just for a second, think. If you were faced with something inexplicable, something terrifying, but that needed your help, would you run? Or would you step forward, even if your whole life told you to flee? Because that's what I did. I stepped forward. Into the darkness. Into the unknown. And I have never been the same since. But the night wasn't over. The shadows still lingered. The whispers had only just begun, and whatever was hidden in my home was waiting for me to take the next step. I had no idea how long I stayed in that cold, dusty room at the bottom of the basement, clutching those photographs and letters. My hands shook, my knees ached, my back felt every year of my age. But I couldn't leave. I couldn't, because I finally understood what had been happening all along. The whispers, the taps, the shadows, they weren't trying to frighten me. They were trying to be heard. They were waiting for me. I carefully placed the photographs on the floor, arranging them like I was laying out a map. The letters I tucked into a small box beside them. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Why here? Why now? Why me? And then it hit me, Richard had known. He always knew. He had sensed something beyond this world, beyond my understanding. And now, after all these years, he had left me a trail that led me here. The shadow moved again, silently, closer. Not menacing, not threatening, but deliberate, guiding me almost gently toward a small trunk in the corner of the room. My breath caught in my throat. My hands trembled. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to open it. And yet, I had to. I lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped carefully in old cloth, were more letters. Journals. Small trinkets. Toys. Items belonging to people long gone. I recognized some of the names from the photographs. Each one carried a story. Each one a life interrupted. I sank to my knees and whispered aloud, I don't know how to help you, but I want to try. I have to." Then a whisper. Not behind me. Not beside me. Inside my mind. Clear. Firm. Gentle. "Margaret, follow their stories." I froze. My heart raced. The voice, it wasn't Richard. It wasn't human. It was something else. Something older. Something patient. Something that had been waiting for me to understand. I took a deep breath. "Tell me what to do," I whispered. And then I did something foolish. I started reading the letters aloud one by one. Each one told a story. Painful stories. Disappearances. Families torn apart. Lives forgotten. And as I read, I could feel the presence of the people. The lost souls growing stronger around me. A warmth that was eerie but comforting at the same time. Step by step, I pieced together their histories, patterns, connections, names, dates, places. It was overwhelming. My hands shook. My vision blurred. And yet, there was clarity in the chaos, a reason behind the whispers. And that's when I realized the truth. These souls were not here to haunt me. They were here to be remembered, to be acknowledged. And I was their witness. Tears streamed down my face. My voice cracked. I will remember you. I will honor you. I won't let you be forgotten. The shadow moved closer again, almost as if nodding in approval. And then softly, the laughter I had heard earlier returned. That delicate, joyful, innocent laughter of a child. It echoed through the basement. Light, fragile, beautiful. I smiled through my tears. You're safe now, I whispered. I'll take care of you. The presence seemed to shift, lighter now. The air felt warmer, somehow calmer. The shadows that had once loomed heavy now danced gently in the corners. But I knew this was just the beginning. The house held many secrets. The whispers had led me here for a reason. And I had a responsibility. Sweetheart, let me ask you something. Just for a moment, imagine this. If you discovered something beyond your understanding, something that could scare you to your core, but also needed your help, would you run? Or would you stay and try? 'Cause I chose to stay. I couldn't leave them. I spent hours that night reading the letters, understanding the stories. And with every story I uncovered, the presence grew more tangible. Not frightening, not dark, but alive, present, grateful. And then the whisper came again. Not my name this time. Not a command. A gentle, almost familiar tone. Thank you. I pressed my hand to my chest, my heart hammering. I whispered back, you're welcome. I'll help as much as I can. And then I realized something terrifying. If these souls had been waiting for me, that meant someone or something had been keeping watch. Watching me. Waiting for the right person. Waiting for the right time. And it had chosen me. I thought of my grandchildren. My family. My neighbors. Would they believe me? Would they understand? I didn't know. And frankly, I didn't care. Not anymore. This was bigger than disbelief. Bigger than fear. I had a mission now. Purpose. I gathered the letters, the journals, the photographs. I organized them as best I could, creating a map of lives interrupted, stories forgotten, people lost. My hands shook, my body ached, but my spirit was alive in a way I hadn't felt in decades. And then I heard it again. A whisper. Soft. Clear. Gentle. Margaret, we are with you. I smiled through my tears. I know. And I won't let you down. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the basement, surrounded by the stories of the lost, the whispers of the forgotten, and the presence that had guided me here. I realized that the house, my home, was no longer just a building. It was a keeper of memories, a guardian of souls. And I had been chosen to honor them. I looked around at the shadows, at the photographs, at the letters. I whispered, I will follow your stories. I will remember you. I will help you find peace. And in that moment I felt it. A weight lifted. A calm settled. The house was no longer hollow. It was alive with stories, with memories, with gratitude. Sweetheart, if you've ever felt alone, if you've ever heard whispers in the night, remember this. Sometimes the unknown is not to frighten you. Sometimes, it's waiting for you to step forward, to listen, to help, to care. That night I chose to step forward, and I have never regretted it. I didn't realize how late it had become until the house grew quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. The whispers, once urgent, frantic, were now softer, calmer. The shadows that had followed me, guided me, watched me. They lingered in the corners, patient, like they had something more to show me. I clutched the journals to my chest and walked back toward the living room. Every step echoed through the hallways of my old home. The air smelled faintly of paper and dust, but beneath it, a strange warmth, like the presence of someone alive, comforting, familiar. And then, I heard it. A whisper. My name. Margaret. Not urgent this time. Not desperate. But tender. Familiar. Almost like a warning. I froze. My heart pounded. I whispered, who is it? What do you want from me now? Silence. But it wasn't empty silence. It was waiting. Watching. anticipating. I realized something terrifying. The presence, the shadows, the whispers, they weren't done with me. They never would be. Not until I fully understood. Not until I finished what I had been called to do. I sank into my favorite chair. The journals spread around me. I flipped through each one, searching for answers. The letters, the photographs, the old trinkets, they weren't random. They were a map. A history. A trail of lives interrupted, of people lost, of whispers that had been waiting decades for someone to hear them. And then I heard it again. A soft, deliberate sound from upstairs. The attic. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The attic, that dark, heavy secret place. I whispered aloud. No, not again. I've been there already. I've seen what's up there. But the sound continued. A tap. Slow. Measured. On the floorboards above me. I swallowed hard. My age told me to ignore it. My instincts told me to call someone. To leave. To flee. But my heart, my stubborn heart, told me something else. Someone is waiting, I whispered. And I knew it was true. I climbed the stairs slowly, clutching the railing. The air grew colder with every step. The light from the hallway barely reached the attic door. I stopped. My hand hovered over the knob. My fingers shook. And then a whisper right behind me. Margaret. I spun. Nothing. Only shadows dancing across the walls. My pulse thundered in my ears. My hand gripped the door. I turned the knob. Slowly. Carefully. The attic greeted me with darkness. Shadows stretched across the walls. Dust floated in the air like tiny stars. And in the far corner, the figure. It was taller this time. Not human. Not quite solid. But it moved with purpose. Watching. Waiting. I whispered. I'm here. What do you want from me? The figure didn't answer. It tilted its head, almost like it was assessing me, measuring me, testing me, and then it stepped aside. A small chest sat in the corner. Old. Covered in dust. Locked. I realized this was the heart of it all. The source. The truth. I knelt in front of the chest, my hands trembling. My breath hitched. I whispered. Please, let me understand. And then I noticed the lock. Broken. The chest opened easily. Inside hundreds of letters. Names. Faces. Stories. People I had seen in photographs. People whose lives had been forgotten. And at the very bottom, a photograph of Richard. My Richard. Younger. Smiling. Holding a child. Not our grandchild. Someone else. Someone I had never met. I gasped. My hands shook. Richard, what is this? A whisper rose again. Not in my ear. Not from the shadow. But inside me. It's never been about him alone. It's about all of us, all the forgotten. You are the only one who can guide them home. I sank to my knees, tears streaming down my face. My heart ached. My soul ached. But I knew it was true. This was my purpose. My calling. The reason the whispers had never stopped. The reason the shadows had followed me. The reason I had been chosen. I thought of my grandchildren. My neighbors. My friends. Would they understand? Could they? It didn't matter. Not anymore. This was beyond them. Beyond fear. Beyond disbelief. I whispered aloud. I will help. I will guide them. I will not fail. The shadow moved closer. Not threatening. Not dark. Not heavy. But gentle. A presence filled with anticipation, approval, and relief. And then the whispers multiplied. Softly. All around me. Names. Stories. Please. Gratitude. I smiled through my tears. I hear you. I see you. I won't forget you. And then the attic grew warmer. The shadows receded slightly. The whispers softened into a hum. I felt the presence of the lost souls, their gratitude, their trust. Sweetheart, just for a moment, think about this. If you were chosen to help those who cannot speak for themselves, would you accept the responsibility, even if it scared you more than anything in your life? Because that night I accepted it. I embraced it. I stepped fully into the role I had been given. And as I sat in that attic surrounded by shadows and whispers, I understood something that changed everything. This house, this old creaky lonely house, was never empty. It never had been. It was alive with stories, with memories, with souls waiting to be heard. And I was their listener. I never thought I'd see morning again that night. The attic, the basement, the whispers, the shadows, they had tested me, pushed me, frightened me. But as the first pale light of dawn crept through the windows, I realized something incredible. I had survived. Not just survived. I had learned. I had understood. I had become something more than I had ever been. I sat in the attic surrounded by letters, journals, photographs. The shadows that had once loomed heavy and threatening now lingered gently, like silent guardians. The whispers had softened into a chorus of gratitude. Names, stories, lives. Each one now safe in my hands. I pressed my palm to my chest. My heart ached, my hands shook, but my soul, oh, my soul had never felt more alive. And then I saw it. A photograph lying on the floor. Richard. Younger. Smiling. Holding the hand of a child I didn't recognize. My chest tightened. My voice cracked. Richard, what does this mean? A whisper answered. Not behind me. Not beside me. But inside me. It means you were chosen. Chosen to see, to remember, to guide. They trusted you. All of them. And you did not fail. Tears blurred my vision. I whispered back. I tried. I tried so hard. And then something extraordinary happened. The shadows began to lift. Slowly, gently. The attic brightened as the morning sun poured in. The oppressive weight that had held the house in its grip for decades seemed to dissolve. I could breathe again. Really breathe. I realized that the presence, the whispers, the lost souls, they were free. Not gone exactly, but at peace. At last. Because someone had listened. Someone had cared. Someone had stepped forward. Sweetheart, let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly listened to someone who couldn't speak for themselves? Really listened? Not just with your ears but with your heart? Because that night I did. And it changed everything. I gathered the journals and letters carefully, placing them in neat piles. Each one told a story, a life remembered, a memory preserved. I knew what I had to do next. I couldn't keep this to myself. I had to share it. Maybe not everyone would believe me, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the truth, the stories, the lives that needed to be remembered. I went downstairs, careful not to disturb the quiet, the peace that had settled over the house. Every step felt different. The floorboards no longer creaked ominously. The air was warm, filled with a strange, gentle hum. I realized the house was alive with gratitude, alive with memories, alive with life. I paused at the living room window, looking out at the first signs of morning. Birds chirped, light filtered through the trees, the world moved as if nothing had happened. And yet, I knew everything had happened. Everything. And I had survived it. I had faced it. I had honored it. And then I thought of my family, my grandchildren, my neighbors. Would they understand? Maybe. Maybe not. But it didn't matter. This was my story. My responsibility. My purpose. I whispered aloud. I will keep listening. I will keep remembering. I will guide those who cannot speak for themselves. The whispers returned one final time, soft and delicate. Names, stories, fragments of lives long past. I pressed my palm to my heart and whispered back. I hear you. I will not forget. I will honor you. And then silence. Not the heavy, oppressive silence of fear, but a calm, peaceful silence. The house felt lighter, freer, alive in a new way. The shadows had vanished, the whispers had faded, but the memory, the presence, the life of the house remained. I sat there for a long time, breathing, listening to the quiet, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. I realized that I had changed. Not just my understanding of the house or the shadows or the whispers, but of myself. I had faced fear, loneliness, the unknown. I had stepped forward when all I wanted to do was run. I had chosen to listen, to care, to act. And in doing so, I had found purpose, peace, and courage I never knew I had. Sweetheart, if you take anything from my story, take this. Sometimes the things we fear the most, the unknowns that haunt us, are not meant to harm us. They are waiting for someone brave enough to step forward, to care, to listen. And when you do, you discover strength, purpose, and a connection to life itself that you never imagined. I stood stretching my old bones, the morning light warming my face. I placed the journals and letters carefully on the table. I knew I would continue their work. I would share their stories. I would honor their memories. And I would do it with every ounce of courage left in me. As I stepped outside, the sun kissed my face. The house behind me seemed peaceful, alive with its stories, its memories, its whispers now at rest. And for the first time in decades, I felt truly safe. And so, my dears, if you ever hear whispers in the night, if you ever feel shadows watching, remember this. Sometimes the unknown comes not to frighten you, but to guide you, to trust you, to call upon your courage, your heart, your soul. I answered that call, and it changed everything. Now, I live every day listening, remembering, honoring, knowing that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward in spite of it. Because in the end, that's what keeps the whispers alive, and the memories eternal.